told me she was gonna go up and invite herself to sing one of the songs that he wrote.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that at all for me?
She was very excited. She was telling me how compatible they are and how there's going to be some shaking up when they do get together, her and Brent.
Okay.
We decided to go to the show in hopes that she would show up. We knew it was coming up in a couple days, but in the meantime, we had other leads we had to follow. Every second mattered.
Anytime we have someone go missing, anyone who has a romantic interest or relationships like that is obviously going to be a very important person that we need to talk to. This is a person that may have critical information that we need to get right away. Her ex-husband, Stephen Williams, had recently been in Hopestown visiting.
Tricia met Stephen Williams when she was in high school.
Stephen was charming. Everyone liked him, and they were happy.
But after 10 years, Tricia divorced Stephen. Tricia said, I don't need alimony. All I want is just a reasonable amount of child support. She said, I'm going to give Stephen all the access he wants with faith. She was very fair with him in that way.
We initially interviewed Stephen Williams over the phone. Now, over the phone, it's hard to see that person's demeanor, see their reactions. So we contacted Raleigh Police Department and requested their assistance in bringing him into the interview room so they can see his body language and make sure his statement was consistent with what he had told us on the phone.
I know it's not glamorous. Didn't expect it to be. Appreciate you guys. Come on, let's shut the door so I'm talking privacy.
Martin County Sheriff's Office, their detectives had reached out to us once Ms. Todd was reported missing and found that her ex-husband had been in their jurisdiction and visiting their 2-year-old child at the time of and just prior to her disappearance.
The plan was just to meet with Stephen Williams. He actually came to the station voluntarily, drove himself there.
Run right into this so I don't waste a lot of your time. Tricia is missing.
A little bit of the background I believe we had was that he had left around the time Tricia went missing, and from all accounts, he was the last one to have seen her.
The information that they got was that you had been down there and had recently seen her. Yeah. So obviously they're talking to everybody that's had any contact with her during, a general period of time.
Exactly, yeah. I'm not gonna come here and be an ass, listen to an ass. Like, look, let's get this done, do what needs to be done, and like you said, just move on.
Yeah.
Stephen seemed very comfortable, he was very articulate, and he seemed very confident.
So I'm not gonna be like, well, I want a lawyer, damn it. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna come in here and do the right thing. And hopefully it gets us closer to finding her. I want my daughter to have her mother. I want her to be found, and hopefully she is okay. Because I feel like I'm living a TV drama right now. Like, oh, the ex-husband comes to town, and all of a sudden the ex-wife goes missing. Great, that's freaking awesome. That's what I want to do, because that doesn't seem awkward or suspicious to anybody. Like, I'm not stupid, like, I get it.
It just seemed odd how he phrased that whole portion of his statement to me, an attempt to disarm us by stating the obvious. He talked about how he knew he would be the primary suspect if something went wrong.
I don't want the limelight. I don't
think a normal person would perceive that attention, if you will, as limelight. It seemed like it fed his ego, like he got some satisfaction out of it.
The interview was a voluntary, consensual interview. He was kind of giving every sign of, hey, I want to cooperate with you guys fully, but our gut instinct did tell us that something just wasn't right.
You're just making everything a lot easier, and I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, I just want to help.
Right, and at the end of the day, it's one step closer to putting this crap behind you.
We had been working on this case for days. Some of my detectives without sleep, and there's a big ticking time clock hanging over our head.
Stephen Williams was one of the last to see Tricia Todd alive, and she just vanished into thin air. It's very important to look at the ex-spouse. We didn't know what his true story was yet.
Try to get a timeline of events. He told us he went and picked his daughter Faith up
from the babysitter.
There was a point that night, close to midnight, where his daughter, Faith, started to get fussy. So he sent Tricia a text message.
So I text her, like, hey, Faith is super fussy, you know, I know it's late, but if you're up kind of thing, like, would you mind coming and calming her or whatever? And then I shoot a text back, like, on my way. Awesome. So a few minutes go by, she comes over, she sits with Faith. Faith is happy now. 12:30, 1 o'clock by now.
Probably after midnight.
Yeah. She leaves, Faith is asleep, and then, well, she didn't leave, actually, since her car's out of gas. Which, that really frustrates me. That's her thing. Her car never has gas in it. And she mentioned there's a gas station up the street, and I was like, you know what, gas stations, gas cans, you got any money, I'll just drive my car, I'll go get you a gas can and some gas, no big deal. So she gives me a 20, I leave, the gas station's maybe a half mile down. Get the gas can, pay for it, get 2 gallons of gas, leave, put the gas in her car, and then I told her good night, basically. I'll contact you tomorrow, or you can call me or whatever. That's it.
He said Tricia drove off into the night. It was around 2 a.m. His timeline was really good and solid.
Next day, Faith wakes up. I take her to Walmart. And I messaged her that day after getting no reply. Straight to voicemail. I'm like, well, that's annoying. I don't want to stay here all day. Like, I don't like driving at night. So I was like, you know what? I'll just take her to Denise. That's where I picked her up from anyway, and that's who normally watches her.
The babysitter agreed, so he drove over there, dropped his child off, and he left town. If he is innocent, you know, we need him to help us prove that. Tricia Todd had now been missing for over 48 hours, and we knew that time wasn't on our side. We need to follow up on those leads immediately as to who they talked to, where they were last seen. We believed that Tricia was planning some sort of big, dramatic event where she was going to profess her love for local ventriloquist Brent Vernon. We believed this was going to happen at a local show that he was going to do when he came back to Hope Sound.
She had told several friends that she had bought this blue dress, and she was talking about how she wanted to go on stage with him and sing a song with him.
In my mind, the most likely place that she would show up if she was just missing under her own will was at the show.
This was like the final hope that she would show up.
We actually went to the show and sort of hung out in the back just to see if anything would happen. We really were scanning everyone who came in.
I sat up on the second tier of the auditorium, waiting for a redhead in a blue dress to show up.
I was staring out the window the entire time, hoping that every car that pulled up might have Tricia Todd in it.
They stayed the whole entire show. Tricia Todd never showed up.
We were all brokenhearted she didn't show up. We were all expecting her to come in.
That's when I was convinced that something else had happened to her.
What do you think happened to her?
I don't know.
One of the things that he suggested is it wasn't uncommon for her to take these late night walks.
It would be like 1 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and she'd be like, oh, I wanted to go for a walk. She would say, like, I want to talk with God. But it's like, at 2 in the morning, you're just going to be walking the neighborhood by yourself. Like, you don't even have, like, some pepper spray. You don't have your phone. Like,
is she that kind of person that's oblivious to that stuff?
She's always had that, like, God will protect me thing going on. Like, nothing will happen to me. I'm a child of God. I'm thinking, like, that's good to have that kind of faith. But it gets to a point where, like, let's be reasonable here. Like, good people still die every day.
He told us that she did some mission work and would travel to various countries to do that. He mentioned after their divorce was finalized where she jumped in a car, drove down to Key West for several days and didn't tell anyone.
We have to eliminate any possibility that there was foul play. We've not been able to do that. The media became involved, and we began having regular press briefings. And every hour that she didn't come home, the intensity grew, the interest grew.
There was a huge mobilization in Hope Sound. There was just enormous amounts of people that showed up to search different areas. They were just extremely generous.
Right now, volunteers are out in the woods helping deputies trying to find any kind of clue, desperately hoping to bring Tricia Todd home safe.
This is not a game. You're dealing with human life. This is when I lie awake in bed, when you get to the critical juncture of an investigation.
I just want to know, like, is there anything, just something, I don't know. Wondering. Any closer to finding her?
If there is, I don't know about it.
He was fishing to see what it was that we knew at that time.
Good, hopefully they find, like, a trace, just something, even if it's like, hey, there's a speck of blood.
It's not something typically you would hear. It just seemed like he knew that there was going to be some physical evidence somewhere.
There are times in life where things happen that we wish we could take back. And if this scenario that's involving you is a scenario where you either accidentally, intentionally, I don't know, did something, now's the time to tell us.
I still care about her, I just don't want to be with her.
I wanted to minimize any involvement that he may have had, give him an opportunity to say that it was an accident, that he wasn't a bad person, and try not to paint the picture of him being a murderer.
I can't do anything for Tricia. I don't know anything. I can't help but look. Passing out flyers in North Carolina does me no good.
His emotion, that was very strange to me. He seemed very detached from Tricia Todd. Didn't feel like a typical divorce scenario. But we had already locked him in on a statement. We had already examined his cell phone forensically. We'd already processed his vehicle.
The car was very clean. We really didn't see much of anything.
At that point in time, he was free to go.
After Raleigh spoke with Stephen Williams, he really gave them the same information he had already given us over the phone.
We were still in the same spot as we were as the day she went missing. We had nothing.
Through the investigation, we had several leads, but nothing really panned out. We did not have many options other than to just keep following up on leads. And that's when we found another suspect, a gentleman named Douglas Purchase. He was a local preacher. What we learned was that Douglas Purchase has had several contacts with Tricia Todd while she was walking on the beach.
With Tricia, you had contact with her, correct?
Yeah, I talked to her.
This was a little bit odd because he was an older gentleman out in the middle of the night. Tricia Todd was much younger than Mr. Purchase.
I felt compelled to speak to her. I said, Lord, if you want me to speak to her, have her stop, ask me before she went in. And she did. She stopped. I asked her the question. I said, do you know the Lord Jesus Christ is your personal Savior? That's the first thing I said to her. She goes, yes.
We had learned that Tricia had confided in Mr. Purchase about problems in her life. Could that have been the last one that she was with?
Let me ask you this, on a personal level, were you attracted to her?
She's a very attractive girl. Maybe somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe there was some sort of romantic interest there, probably one-sided on his behalf, and that made us concerned about his relationship with Tricia. Maybe that there was more to it than he was letting us know. He may actually be involved in her disappearance. Once I felt that Tricia was not missing on her own, now we really needed to investigate Douglas Purchase. He was a local preacher. He often was out on the beach talking to people. He told us that he had spoken with Tricia. We couldn't tell immediately if he was the last person to have seen her before she went missing, but we knew that they did have some contact.
She's a very attractive girl.
The way that he talked about Tricia sparked our interest into looking further into him.
I felt compelled to speak to her.
We needed to essentially prove or disprove that Mr. Purchase had something to do with Tricia Todd's disappearance. He agreed.
We're going to proceed. The first test that you're going to take is, it's basically a pseudo test. I want you to lie. Because what I'm doing is the machine now is going to calibrate itself based upon what you're getting ready to do.
Wait a minute. Under no circumstances will I lie for anybody or anything.
I understand.
The Bible is very clear about deceit.
It's your intention here today not to take the test.
That's correct, due to you're asking me to lie.
Douglas Purchase, he started off cooperative. We offered him a polygraph, but for religious purposes, he declined. That's not uncommon. It raises some red flags, so we knew we had to take some further steps with him.
It just led us down another avenue where we had to look deeper and find out who is this guy and what's he about? Could he have done this?
On the night she went missing, you were down at the beach, about 1:30 in the morning.
That was the night she was missing?
What were you doing down there?
There was a turtle laying eggs, and so, you know, all my concentration, everything was on the turtle.
He told us that he could not have been involved because he was on the beach and that there was a sea turtle. We thought this was pretty far-fetched. It was kind of far out there. We needed to look at cameras, security footage, talk to witnesses.
We still had no leads as to where she was. And we all just knew something's really wrong, something happened to her. But as far as Douglas Purchase, we had to either clear him as a suspect or make him a solid suspect. Stephen Williams was very important to look at in this case. He was the ex-husband. But everything Stephen Williams had told us up to that point was matching up.
From his original story, everything that he told us was always confirmed through video. I mean, he's telling us the truth about all of those things.
Our detectives went to North Carolina to speak with Stephen, get his story locked in again. We want to get our own perception of, you know, his demeanor, his body language, get that feel for him and see if he would be cooperative.
The next morning after we arrive in Raleigh, we head over to Stephen Williams' house. We asked him if he'd be willing to come down to the Raleigh Police Department to talk to us. Mr. Williams said he needed to gather some things, but he would cooperate with us and he would come do it.
Stephen was still a suspect in this, so we had to really focus in on him and everything that surrounded him, including his girlfriend.
We decided, let's talk to Stephen's living girlfriend by the name of Laura, just to see if she had any involvement or animosity that we don't know about towards Tricia.